Deedra Abboud joins us at Rebel headquarters. She's running for a Senate seat in Arizona. Deedra, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Deedra, boy, you've got some clowns to the left of you and some jokers to the right of you. Apparently, we're stuck in the middle with you, which is a good place to be stuck. Before we get to the left, let's talk about the right. This is the Senate seat that Jeff Flake is leaving. Sheriff Joe Arpaio is in this race. Chemtrail Kelly Ward is in this race. I mean, you've got a real murderer's row of lunatics on the right-wing side. So of those people, who do you think is the biggest threat that you'd like to stop with your candidacy?
I don't think that Arpaio or Kelly Ward are the issue. I think McSally is the one to beat. She's always said that she's a moderate, and suddenly she's no longer a moderate and totally on the Trump train. And that I think that she's the one that is actually most credible within the Republican Party. That's the real opponent.
Now, why do you think she's on the Trump train?
Her latest videos of releasing her campaign, she's definitely seeking the Trump endorsement, thinks that will make a difference. But she's focusing on national security and the threat of the scary people that don't look like us.
Yeah. And McSally, and this goes to a larger point, is running for the Senate because she might actually lose her House seat. And it's partly because of not just shifting demographics, especially in Arizona, but because of what appears to be a tidal wave of blue coming. And so over 30 Republicans have already said they're not going to run anymore, including 8 or 9 committee chairs, which is stunning. And so McSally's running from the House as much as she's running towards the Senate. And so that's a really interesting dynamic for you, because now this is a toss-up state. And it could go for someone like her, who I think is extreme with the ties to Trump, or someone as extreme as Arpaio, or it could go to a Muslim American such as yourself. Boy, that's a big swing, right?
It's a very interesting district that she's leaving. They're actually progressive, and she was definitely in jeopardy. There was a huge movement against her positions and her voting record. And those people are going to follow her into the Senate campaign, demonstrating that she does not represent that area. But in general, in Arizona, people really want to believe their representatives and believe that they want what is best for our state. They want our representatives to stop bickering. Yes, that's true, but they also want them to stand up and fight for Arizona. I mean, such as healthcare for all and net neutrality, and they want we're all fine with religion. A lot of us are religious, but we want our government to get out of the business of God and let us have our own relationships with God without laws. So there's a lot going on, and then education, of course, is a big deal in Arizona.
Yeah, and so I read that you were originally a Southern Baptist. Just curious, why did you decide to convert to Islam?
I think like a lot of people, religion speaks to you when you study it. And when I originally studied it, it was actually to convert Muslims to Christianity. And the more I studied in order to be better at converting them, the more I liked what I read, and it spoke to me. And I really liked the very clear ideas of what women's rights were, contrary to what most people think. And I embraced that. And I also understood, being in the South and also being a Christian, that there's a definite difference between what the doctrine says and what some people practice.
Yeah, look, I went in a different direction, or the opposite direction. I was born Muslim, but became atheist, agnostic. But we agree on policy, so that's the most important thing.
Well, I think that you will agree that no one has religious liberty unless everyone has religious liberty, including people who don't want religion at all.
That's exactly right. So let's talk about net neutrality, because I see a lot of the priority lists for the candidates, and there's lots of good things on there. Medicare for all, and you have that as well. Money out of politics. You're a just Democrat, so you don't take any corporate PAC money. So that's all wonderful. But not a lot of folks have net neutrality on their list of priorities. Why do you have that one?
I chose that one in April, May of last year. And I chose that because I saw that as a very clear foundational freedom issue. if we allow corporations, relationships with corporations to decide what information we get, fake news is the least of our worries. And I saw that the lack of regulation, and there really has to be some regulation. You can't just let corporations willy-nilly decide who gets what information at what rate and not treating all data as equal. Then that really feeds into us not being free and being able to be controlled by different interests. So since that's such a foundational freedom issue and so many people didn't understand that, I wanted to make that one of my top policy issues, both to educate people and to protect that freedom, even though people didn't really understand until late last year how important that freedom was.
And you've got another one on here that I found interesting. You talk about privatization of our public education system being a threat to democracy itself. That's very interesting. That's a strong statement. Why so?
We're making our children a commodity. We're deciding whether or not they can eat, whether or not they deserve it. So we're taking away the free meal programs. But more importantly, it's the voucher program, the privatization of schools. Arizona's ground zero of the voucher program, and it's a hideous program that most people were confused that they needed the vouchers to send their children to charter schools. Charter schools already get public money, even though they're privately owned, and the vouchers don't benefit the charter schools. So you're giving this public money to private entities that are majority religious based. So not only are you privatizing education with no federal oversight or state oversight because they're private, but you're also using public money to establish religion or to support religion. So if I wasn't against it because of the commoditization of children, I would also be against it because it's having public money supporting religion, which shouldn't be the case.
Okay, great. And as a secular agnostic, I couldn't agree more. And so one more thing now, let's talk about the Democrats in the primary. Kristen Sinema is the one being backed by the Democratic establishment. I had a lot of great hopes for her when she first went into Congress. She seemed like a significant progressive, but now she's taking on a lot of conservative positions and greatly disappointed progressives across the country. So what's the dynamic there? Is she able to rally progressives? Have they not gotten the memo on what her actual positions is, or is that going to be an issue for her in the race?
That is definitely an issue for her in the race. I actually have known Kirsten since '99. We were in the peace movement together, and been a supporter all of these years. I got into the race in April. She got in October, November. But her definitely her votes have not been anywhere close to smelling progressive, and that's a problem. Because Arizona is not a red state, it's a purple state, and it's had so many Republican representatives, not because we have more people who are conservative leaning, but because we haven't been running anyone else. And that's not the case in 2018. But immigration is a big issue here. She voted for Kate's Law, which is an enhancement for people who are undocumented, putting them in jail for 10 to 15 years instead of just deportation, which costs us tax money. She voted against net neutrality, regulating the internet providers, how much they could charge people for the internet. She has not mentioned anything about healthcare at all. She just wants to make ACA better, but not make sure that everybody has coverage, and that is so important. Her website is actually completely empty of any information whatsoever. Both her congressional and her Senate website do not say what she wants to do, and only her congressional website says what she's done. So a lot of times we don't know where she stands, but if you look at her voting record, it's definitely not even close to anything called progressive. And honestly, I don't think that it's moderate either, because if you're not for every American having health care, which is actually the moderate position so we don't die and catch up with the rest of the industrialized world, I'm not sure how you can even call yourself moderate at that point.
Yeah, I don't know why we would go for corporate Democrats when they're real progressives in primaries. That's the whole point of primaries. So I want to give everybody links to Deedra Abboud's website, and how to donate and how to volunteer. Time is more important than money. As I tell you all the time, warriors will beat mercenaries. So if you're in Arizona, volunteer for Deedra at her website, deedra2018.com. And then, of course, if you want small dollar donations to beat corporate donations, then that's, of course, part of what you can do to help as well. The links will be down below on YouTube's description box and the comment section on Facebook. And from my point of view, drive Donald Trump crazy and have a Muslim American with a Southern twang beat Joe Arpaio and the rest of the lunatics on the right in Arizona. And that'll be a perfect present for progressives. Yeah. All right. Thank you for being on, Deedra. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. Anytime.
All right.